What are your big takeaways from these Alphabet numbers?
Yeah, I thought that the quarter was very good. The tech space as a whole has continued to be very encouraging. I mean, it wasn't a blowout like some of the others, but there was a lot of concerns with so many small businesses being impacted that ad spending would really be down quite a bit. And it was down a little bit, but I felt like Google shined, or, Alphabet shined as a whole with YouTube showing growth year over year despite the pandemic. Its cloud business has been really encouraging. I think the business grew about $1 billion from the same period last year. And this was really the worst of it. This last quarter, I know there's definitely some ongoing challenges with the pandemic, but we don't see closures like we have over the last quarter coming again. We see more economic activity, and the overall performance was good to be encouraged by. And the data shows, Emily, that despite the fact that, ad revenue for the year may drop about 5%, according to eMarketer, that the remaining 6 months of the year, the IAB is saying that paid and social activity are going to be up 20 to 25%, which, given that Google doesn't give its forward guidance, should show some encouragement to the street that the next quarter could be better.
Now, I'd love to hear how you would compare Google to Facebook here, because Facebook is in the middle of a massive advertiser boycott and still hugely beat on revenue estimates, especially in advertising. We didn't see as much of an uplift in Google, and they're not facing an advertiser boycott. What do you make of that?
I think it's behavior, Emily. I believe we may be boycotting, and there are certain companies that are certainly pulling back, but people are spending more time. You saw the average revenue per user grow. Time people are spending, the daily active user numbers up, the monthly active users are up. And it's with Facebook, the more time people spend, the more revenue is generated. And for businesses that are trying to come back, a lot of companies are participating in the boycott, but of course, just as many are not. And if companies are having success with Facebook and the platform being a place where people spend time, where messages are going out, if people you spend time with or anything like the people I do, there's just a lot of time and energy being spent on Facebook. And I think Facebook's capitalizing on it really well. And of course, the company does, brilliant and yet arguably very invasive things with data. And that's able to be used to optimize and really get the right ads in front of the right people. And of course, Google has a similar model, but it doesn't have the same engagement model, Emily, that Facebook has. It really tends to keep users on the platform, spending time and energy, and of course, creating revenue from advertisers.
Now, I also did talk to Alphabet CFO Ruth Porat about the antitrust hearing. It certainly seems like some lawmakers have made up their minds about Google and that they could be pursuing aggressive regulation. So I asked her how concerned she is about that, and she said, "We're happy to engage with regulators as they review the entire industry, not just Google." She did point that out. All big companies are the subject of scrutiny. All the data shows consumers love our product. How concerned are you, Dan, about regulation here?
Well, regulation is important to make sure we have checks and balances. As a whole, Emily, I find the timing of putting this much energy into regulating the tech industry a little bit alarming. There just seems to be bigger things that lawmakers could be using the time to focus on. Having said that, everything from censorship to platforms, we heard about just recently on your segment about Apple and the App Store, to, giving people choice, which, like with Amazon, of course, how dominant are you in an industry? And all the companies, I thought, did a pretty good job of explaining that there is a certain amount of choice in each of the respective industries. And I feel like Alphabet, of course, really does have a huge percentage of search. But when you look at shopping and you look at retail and then you look at social and the way information is consumed, it is more distributed because people do use Facebook as search and people do use Amazon as search. So, I think these conversations are going to continue. I hope we realize right now that these big companies are creating jobs. And right now, as we're trying to make the economy come back, I think that's really important. So I hope we don't push too hard on this now and maybe come back to this when we have some more stability.